Advocate just one minor housekeeping matter.
Yes, Chair.
We called, if I'm not mistaken, or rather we labeled the two volumes, did we say MK1 and MK2?
We had said both are MK1.
Oh, both are MK1.
Yes.
I just thought we have an annexure that is
That's a
MK1
problem.
inside. So I'm just thinking maybe for all the volumes that we are going to have, let's use the surnames of the witnesses.
Okay.
So let's just call this one Mkhwanazi 1.
So technically it will be volume 1, then
Yes.
volume 1 equals General Mkhwanazi, and then the volume 2 will be for the next witness.
Didn't you say we call it 1, both of them, or what?
No, I'm saying then volume 2 will be
Yes.
picked up by the following witness.
Oh, all right.
So
Yes.
volume 1, regardless of the number of arch liver files that make up the volume, that constitutes volume 1, General Mkhwanazi.
I think it doesn't matter if we have volume 1 in respect of each witness.
Yes.
So this one is just Mkhwanazi 1.
Okay.
Another one down the line may be Masemula 1. So we can have 100 ones,
Okay.
as long as we identify each one of them by surname.
By surname.
We will not get lost.
We hope not to once
I
the
don't
volume
think we will.
increases. But we will, for the moment, we will follow that approach.
We won't get lost, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, General. You are still under oath. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, General.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner.
General, when we parted yesterday, Commissioner Khumalo had posed a question to us regarding some aspects that we had already covered. And you recall that we undertook to answer that question when we start today, before we continue with your testimony. And I propose that we do so now. And Commissioner Khumalo will correct me if I misquote him, but sorry, I got distracted. The gentleman behind me keeps talking, so it's distracting. If I understood his question correctly, Commissioner Khumalo wanted to understand, in respect to the 121 dockets, and I guess for lack of a better phrase, the ownership of those dockets. He wanted to understand whether the dockets that we reference as Eastern Cape dockets are owned by the task team or they are owned by, let's say, the Eastern Cape Police Service. If I understood the question.
I understood the question differently.
Okay.
But let me let my colleague.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The first question, good morning, General Mkhwanazi.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Yes. You will recall that, and then maybe while we are at it, Advocate Silo, we should just clarify the letter from the Minister.
Yes.
Containing the directive to disband the task team.
Yes.
We kept referring to it as the 2 January 2025 letter. It is in fact dated 31 December.
Indeed, Commissioner, it's the 31st of
Yes.
December. 2 January is when he learned of it.
When General
Yes.
Mkhwanazi first learned of the letter.
Indeed.
Yes, and what I tried to understand or establish, General Mkhwanazi, is your understanding of the instruction to disband the task team and what became of the task team. In other words, the members of the task team subsequent to the instruction to disband it. Did they all go back to their stations or to their provinces? What became after you became aware of the instruction?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, as I said yesterday, that the instruction was not officially given to me. It will have been sent to the National Commissioner. And National Commissioner did not communicate anything to me. But what I know of is that the team continued working. It never stopped. However, the numbers of members that were deployed in the team were reduced. Now, the reason of the perhaps reduction of the total number of personnel deployed might have been influenced by the budget. Might have been influenced by the budget, but I guess the National Commission is in a better position to explain what led into the reduction in terms of the number of personnel. So there's quite a lot of police officers that withdrew and went back to their stations, whereas others remained.
All right. So if I understand you correctly, until there was official communication to you from the National Commissioner, you did not take steps to disband the task team.
That's correct. I did not take steps to disband the task team to date.
And perhaps then, and thank you for the clarification, it is an aspect that we were going to cover, might as well then complete it, to give a sense of the timeline. As we understand things, the letter is dated the 31st of December 2024, and it is dispatched to the office of General Masemola as the National Commissioner on the same date. The General becomes aware of it on the 2nd of January. He thereafter contacted General Masemola, and General Masemola indicated that he did not participate or contribute to that letter, and that in fact he had been away until the 14th of January. In the interim, a letter is dispatched by General Sibia that we referred to of the 4th of February 2025. And we dealt with this letter. There are two of them, the 4th of February 2025 and then one for the 24th of April 2025. In that period, there were engagements, as the witness testified, regarding the possibility of possibly reversing the decision. So in the meantime, the work continues, and up until April, the task team still has its files. You will recall that the witness indicated yesterday that for this period, they were approved 3 months of budget, and that was to run in this unclear time until recently. Then the budget for the entire year was approved. I'm not going to testify and answer whether it existed, and I would like to park it there because we are going to lead into other evidence where we demonstrate the confusion that then reigned as to whether is the task team in existence, is the task team not in existence. You will recall in his evidence yesterday, General Mkhwanazi indicated that from his perspective, he didn't believe the minister had the authority to disband. So everything is up in the air, but I think by lunchtime we'll have successfully demonstrated what confusion reigned, and whether or not it was disbanded, I believe at the end of the day becomes a legal question for us to argue. Thank you. Maybe if I check with the commissioners, last night in our preparation, we had understood that perhaps we rushed through the question of the dockets. And I don't know if you'd like us to, we're thinking to recap on that before we move to the next point.
We are in your hands.
Oh, okay.
You know best what you want to do and what you want to achieve.
It would be for your benefit, but it is important then, I think, that the commissioners understand the whole issue of dockets, the impact of the removal of dockets, which in turn feeds into the very question that the Commissioner Khumalo has posed, that being the latter being the bigger question. For this purpose, I would like to project the what was put up, yes, during
yesterday I complained privately, of course, about the fact that my co-commissioners don't have these monitors. I do have one in front of me. My co-commissioners should have those as well. They should not be expected
Indeed.
to turn and look across there.
And we do this on the assumption.
May I plead with the Secretariat that this should be attended to. Of course, I did not talk to you, Commission Secretary, so I'm not blaming you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry I didn't check. Following discussion after the first hearing, the assumption was that the equipment has since been provided and therefore they will have. And I do apologize that we are here, but I think this is the only slide that we'll have to project for today. Yes. Thank you, Chair. And I was giving the Chair the assurance that I think it's the only slide that we'd have to project. The next one would be tomorrow, and I hope the problem would be resolved by tomorrow. General, if I may ask you to refer to your statement in Volume 1, and in particular to paragraph 87. We dealt with the contents of paragraph 87 yesterday, and there you give a breakdown of the dockets as you classify them, 90 parallel cases, and you talk of ad hoc cases, University of Fort Hare, and traditional leaders' investigations. Yesterday, when the evidence leader, the chief evidence leader, made his opening address, he put up this slide. And on this slide, he indicated, he made a point under the date of the 26th of March 2025, that on that date, 118 dockets were handed over to, on the instruction of General Sibia, and on the 10th of April, an additional 3 were handed over, and bringing the total to 121. So I want us to start the conversation from there, and you explain in the context of what's on the screen whether or not those, what is happening there, why we ended up handing them over in 2 batches, and what is the ownership, quote unquote, of what you term the Eastern Cape dockets. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a limitation from me to explain in details as to the movement of these dockets to the head office because I was not the one that moved them. I believe that the investigating team who handed the dockets to the head office will perhaps come before the commission so that they can explain the whole process that they followed, including the scanning of the document prior to handing over and the audit that they conducted when they received them going back. My involvement, commissioners, is when I first received a briefing in May that the docket are already in Pretoria. And the briefing I received, which I referred to in my statement, is that 121 dockets are in Pretoria. So it was not necessarily explained that they went in patches. So it was said 121 dockets are already in Pretoria. And when I asked as to who directed that, and the response was from Kellen Matlow was that Gerald Kumalo is the one who ordered that those dockets must come up. So the people that facilitated that move, I think they are better positioned to explain. My involvement only is limited to the briefing I get and the inquiry started making thereafter.
Thank you for that, General, and I appreciate
Your microphone is off.
I apologize. Thank you for that clarification, and your limitations are appreciated. Perhaps then we could turn to the question of the Eastern Cape dockets. We tend to refer to them as Eastern Cape dockets. We appreciated from your evidence yesterday that the mandate of the task team was extended by the President to include investigations into the Fort Hare killings. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So can you at least, insofar explain to the Commission, insofar as the task team is concerned, what is the status of the Eastern Cape dockets? Are they the task team dockets, quote unquote, or what is the real situation there?
As I explained again yesterday, Commissioner, in terms of the ownership of a case docket, it is a police station where the docket was registered. So in this instance, those dockets belong to police stations in the Eastern Cape. Therefore, they fall under the jurisdiction of the Provincial Commission in Eastern Cape. However, because there is a directive that a team must conduct that investigations, which means, therefore, the team have to account for those dockets. They go to the police station, they take over those dockets, and they conduct investigation, but they must update a system which is accounted for at the police station, because the performance of the docket has to be reflected at the police station, regardless of where the docket is. So the team, they are responsible for the docket for the period of the investigation. Until investigation is complete, then they give the docket back. So in terms of the role that the team then plays in this regard is a temporal ownership of the docket in as far as the work they are busy doing. But as soon as they complete the work, then they transfer the docket back so that it gets to be filed and it's accounted for at that particular station.
Thank you. Now, on the return of these dockets, you deal with that at your paragraph 141 and 142 of your statement. You referenced yesterday an analysis that was conducted on those dockets when they were received back from head office. Can you briefly take us through the process of what subsequently became your understanding, what the team did with the dockets prior to handing them over, and the analysis that was conducted when they were returned?
Commissioner, as I indicated, the movement of the docket to Pretoria did not involve me. But through my inquiry from the team, I was informed that they had scanned every single docket before handing it over, so that they keep record of the status of those dockets when they handed them over. I get involved when the dockets has to come back to KZN. And my involvement is started with a meeting that was held between myself, the acting divisional commissioner of detective services, as well as General Khumalo, and my deputy provincial commissioner, acting Major General Gopal. So we had a meeting, all of us, where we discussed how we're going to handle the process of receiving the dockets back. So from that meeting, the agreement that we reached is what we did thereafter, which was to have the very same team responsible from the political clearance task team to hand over the docket, those that has a database of the status of the docket as they handed them over, to come over to Pretoria and meet up with detective services who are in possession of those dockets and go through every single page of the dockets, meaning auditing the status of the docket as they are still in Pretoria versus the status of the docket as per the scanned copies that they had in their possession, just to cross-reference to check whether is everything still as it was when it was handed over. So that is a process that was followed thereafter, and upon agreement, then the dockets were signed off back to the task team as in the same form as they were handed over.
And would it be correct for the Commission to understand that a full audit then was conducted on those dockets, and that there could potentially be a report, an audit report available regarding the matters you've just addressed?
That is correct, Commissioner. A full audit was conducted. Commissioners are going to pay attention. You're going to see later when the audit report is produced that is going to perhaps, as the team are discussing between the head office and the task team, that the number of dockets differs. Differs in the sense that it is not 121, but it's 123. The counting rules of the task team is that when they have a case that involves, which is a priority as per the criteria, typical example, a political leader was killed, a case is registered. And through the investigation, they pick up that there's another docket that is linked to perhaps the suspect or the weapon that was used, it becomes a parallel case. So they take that docket and they merge it with the main one. So it becomes a sub-docket to the main docket. So when the team counts, they count the main docket, they don't count the second one, because it's a parallel investigation. It might be finalized and they achieve success on it, take it to court and finalized. But the counting rule is that they count the main docket that was a main focus area. So when the team handed over, there were 2 of the parallel cases that were attached to the main dockets. So when the team spoke about the handing over the docket, they talk about 121. But when the audit is done and the head office team who did not understand the counting rules, they then said, but there is additional 2 dockets that are inside other dockets, which therefore means there must be additional 2, which makes the number to be 123. So there was any discussion and explanation between the team that our counting rules, we count the main docket, we don't count the second one. But when they were scanned to be handed over to head office, even the sub-dockets were scanned. So everything was as it was handed. So the report will reflect that. I thought I must bring that to the fore so that there's no confusion. But an audit was conducted and finalized, and the report was produced as such.
Thank you. Thank you, General. At paragraph 141, you draw the conclusion based on the analysis that the team conducted and reported to you on, that no investigations were done on any of the dockets. Do you see that?
Yes, I see.
At paragraph 141. At paragraph 142, you give examples, an example of the extent to which there was a complete failure to advance any of the dockets from the time they were taken until they were returned. Could you speak to what's in 142?
Commissioners, what I'm trying to reflect here is that as a police officer who knows about the criminal investigations, once a case docket has got an instruction from court to arrest a suspect, and such an instruction must be carried out with speed. Now, for the period when these dockets were handed over to the head office, there were 5 of those dockets that had instruction to arrest suspects. Because the instruction came before the execution of those arrests, those dockets sat amongst the total dockets in the head office, and those arrests were not effected. What is more troubling about this is that the head office detective services had conducted some inspection on these dockets, as I indicated yesterday. In their inspection, they will have seen, and they even confirmed some of them through the entries that they make, that the investigation is complete on the docket and suspects should be arrested. The least that they could have done is to take the dockets and go and look for that suspect and arrest the suspect. The reason why it was not done, I would not know. They were in a better position to explain. But I believe perhaps it could be that they were not familiar with the case, that the content of the docket itself. So it was going to be difficult for them to execute an arrest on something that they don't necessarily know, based on instruction of the prosecutor, because the docket, some of them are in volumes, and it's quite a lot of information inside those dockets. So the 5 that had instruction, those instructions were not carried out. That was an easy thing to prove that there was work done on those dockets. But as the team were auditing it, they could realize that the investigation work was not done on the dockets.
I think you've clarified something I wanted to get clarity on. You referred to an instruction to arrest coming from the court, and I wanted to just get clarity on that, because I cannot see a court giving that kind of instruction. But later, as you went on in your testimony, you referred to a prosecutor. So did you mean an instruction from a prosecutor to arrest?
Yeah, well, when we talk court in our language, Commissioner, we combine both the NPA and the judiciary. So when we say the docket is gone to court in our language, when we say the docket gone to court, it it does not necessarily mean it's been placed on the roll. It means it's gone to the prosecutor. So the prosecutor works on it, and then the prosecutor will decide to place it on the roll. But when in our language we talk about dockets to court, dockets from court. That's our terminology. But we mean that NPA.
And indeed, in previous years, prosecutors were closely connected to courts and were even housed in court buildings. So maybe that's something historical. But you've clarified it. Thank you very much, General.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, General. And you were dealing then with your paragraph 142. What's in 143's, I think it's a point you raised yesterday, that in this intervening period, you were receiving inquiries from families, concerned members who want to know what is happening with the investigations. That then leads us to the start of today, which is at paragraph 144. We are now at page 49, and I would like you to read paragraph 144 into the record, and you refer to an annexure in that paragraph. We'll thereafter move into the annexure that you reference, because there's significant work to be done, to work through in that annexure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Paragraph 144 on my statement reads, the immediate and adverse impact of the dissolution of the task team cannot be overstated. This is amply and succinctly set out by the Director of Public Prosecution, Advocate E. Harrison, in her letter that was written to me on the 10th of June 2025. Advocate Harrison points out that the benefit of case coordination efforts under the auspice of the task team, of which the NPA is a part, which have led to numerous successful prosecution, will be lost as the individual dockets will have to be returned to the respective areas where the crimes were committed. On the happening of such eventuality, the dedicated prosecutorial team, which had been established by the NPA, will have no further role to play and will have to be dissolved. I annex here to Mark MK12 a copy of this letter.
Thank you, General. Commissioners, that letter starts at page 194, MK12. And also, General, if you could turn to that annexure, 194. Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I should warn that this is going to be the main annexure we work with. But as we deal with the issues reflected in this letter, which are many and varied, we'll be cross-referring to other annexures. So I hope it doesn't cause confusion, because we keep our finger on this annexure as we go into another until we move on. So we never close the page on this. For the record, if you go to page 198, General, there's one small paragraph there, a signature above a name and a date. Could you read the name, designation, and the date as appear on page 198?
Advocate abbreviated ADV E. Harrison, Director of Public Prosecution, KwaZulu Natal, dated 10th of June 2025.
Thank you. If we start then at the beginning of that letter at page 195, Advocate Harrison starts her letter by stating the following: your correspondence dated 22nd May 2025 refers. The contents thereof are noted. Do you confirm that you communicated with Advocate Harrison in 22nd of May 2025?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Commissioners, that particular letter is not an independent annexure for General Mkhwanazi. It's part of annexures that Advocate Harrison has annexed. We can find that letter at page 244. In order to Have you found the letter, General? 244. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
In order to appreciate then the response that follows in Advocate Harrison's letter, your letter is very short. Could you please read your letter into the record and we understand what issues you had raised with her that invite a response, this lengthy response she's about to give?
Commissioner, on the date on the 22nd, I wrote a letter, 22nd of May, I wrote a letter addressed to the Director of Public Prosecution with the heading Political Task Team Prosecution Guided Investigation Failure to Execute the J50 Warrants. In the letter, first paragraph reads, "This office wishes to apologize for the failure in executing the J50 warrants in dockets amongst 121 case dockets that this office has discovered to have been delivered to Pretoria due to a telephonic instruction received by the political task team leader. It is an unfortunate situation that this office became alerted to on the 20th of May in a docket accountable session to the fact that all prosecution guided since 2025-03-26 has not been addressed. This office assures the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution that the whereabouts of the docket is being investigated and the findings will be brought to your attention."
And the date you reference in that letter of 20th May 2025 is the date on which you learned officially in a meeting that the dockets, in fact you learned, not officially, you first learned that the dockets had been removed from KZN.
I became aware on the 20th of May.
Yes.
And I wrote this letter to the Director of Public Prosecution on the 22nd.
Okay. Now let's get back to our page 195, which is Advocate Harrison's actual letter. I would like you to read the second paragraph that starts with "kindly take note" into the record, and we understand what Advocate Harrison is communicating to you in response to your letter that we just spoke about.
On the response from Advocate Harrison, the paragraph reads as follows: "Kindly take note that the purpose of this correspondence is related to the issue of whether the political task team continues to exist. There have been a number of media reports whereby it has been noted that the political task team has been disbanded. There has been no formal communication to the Office of the National Director of Public Prosecution as well as my office on this issue. It is of concern that this office remains unsure of what the correct position is regarding the existence of this team. A Miss Mary DeHaas has been very vocal regarding the disbandment of the task team and the fact that it continues to operate. My office has had to indicate to her that I have received no formal correspondence regarding this disbandment. Despite this response, the concern continues to be a problem."
Thank you, General. If we can then sum up. We know from your evidence yesterday that you, as the provincial commissioner and the head of the political killings task team, never received any formal communication regarding the decision to disband. Am I correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And we learn from now Advocate Harrison from the KZN DPP that neither was the National Director of Public Prosecutions informed, and that she confirms she too, as the head of the KZN DPP, was not informed.
That is correct, Commissioner.
She then, at the third paragraph, informs you of how she has dealt with the matter, and I would like you to read that into the record.
"I engaged Advocate Zaba regarding the content of your above-mentioned correspondence. He has confirmed that members were sent to his office to collect the dockets. My office cannot ignore an instruction when members are sent to collect dockets, as same is the property of ACPS. Upon inquiry regarding the existence of the task team, there was no clear response except that he noted that members of the task team have indicated to him that they will finalize the outstanding cases on the court roll. This is the only information that my office has regarding the issue.
And if perhaps we go over leaf and we read the first paragraph.
In 2026, there will be local government elections. We are aware that all elections are preceded by violent political activity. This consists of murder, attempted murder, assault, criminal injury, malicious injury to property, etc., being committed. The modus operandi differs in that it may involve members from the same political party against each other or between the different political parties.
And if I may just clarify your understanding, yesterday the chair inquired from you what you meant by intra-party killings. Would it be correct? I think your response was that there are killings of each other by members of the same political party. And this is what she references when she says killings involving members of the same political party.
That is correct.
Thank you. My reading of the letter thereafter then, from the second paragraph, Advocate Harrison gives a history of the NPA's involvement, KZN, in the task team before she draws some conclusions at page 197. And it's important that we work through the steps that she has set out in this letter. And this is when we start cross-referencing the many annexures. She starts her second paragraph with the wording, upon my assumption of duty in the province as the Director of Public Prosecutions in May 2019, parentheses, acting in at that time, close parentheses, my office was approached by General Khumalo, who requested for dedicated capacity to respond to the political task team. Do you see that?
That's correct.
The General Khumalo referenced here, is it the same General Khumalo we spoke of yesterday, who you said was the project leader of the task team?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And the body of that paragraph, she references a document dated the 13th of June 2019. She has marked it as Annexure A for the benefit of the Commission. That document, which is Annexure A to Advocate Harrison's letter, is at page 199. So if we could turn to page 199, General.
I'm there.
The top right-hand corner of that document is dated the 13th of June 2019. It's on the letterhead of the Director of Public Prosecutions, KwaZulu Natal, and it's dated all DPP, KZN members of staff. In respect of that document, she says at page 198, we don't have to go there, I'll just remind, because of the increased workload and the demand for prosecutions, this led to my office, Advocate Harrison's office, issuing a directive to the KZN prosecutors dated 13 June 2019, and that is the document we are now looking at page 199. The document at page 199 highlights the issues that I think you testified to yesterday. In particular, from paragraph 2, it notes the high levels of violence, particularly linked to political persons or perpetrated by persons linked to political parties. That was then in 29. At item 3, she references the establishment of the interministerial task team by the President in the same terms that you testified to yesterday. Overleaf at 200, that's the background to the directives that follow from item 5 at page 200. I would like you to read paragraph 5 so we can understand what the instruction by the KwaZulu Natal Deputy Public Protector was to all prosecutors in the province.
Maybe just to correct, is the Director of Public Prosecution.
Director of Public Prosecutions. There are too many acronyms and I mixed them up. I'm sorry for the confusion, and thank you, General, for pointing it out.
Okay, on paragraph 5, it reads as follows. All cases involving offences either perpetrated by persons linked to political party or against a person's links to a political party must be considered by the Chief Prosecutor before the matter being enrolled. In potential High Court matters, the provision of Circular 3 of 2000 still apply. Each cluster and unit or office must ensure that a complete copy of the docket is forwarded to my office in the most expeditious manner in compliance with 3-day rule, and the correspondence must indicate political related cases in the subject line.
So, if I understand that correctly, and I want to test if that is your understanding as well, she is prescribing a process that must be followed regarding these political killings cases.
That is correct, Commissioners.
And that those cases require consideration by the Chief Prosecutor.
That is correct, Commissioner.
She then goes to, we jump to paragraph 8, listed 8, still on page 200, if you could read that.
The decision not to prosecute a person, but to use such a person as a witness in terms of Section 204 of the Criminal Procedure Act must be made in consultation with the Chief Prosecutor and or the DOPP in potential High Court cases, or the DDPP, beg your pardon, in potential High Court cases. Section 204 should only be used in exceptional circumstances, where it is in the interest of justice to use the provision. A reference must be made to Part 4 of the NPA Policy Manual, Section D, headed Section 204 Witnesses.
So then, and once again, to test my understanding and to see if it accords with yours, that item 8 seeks to institute a process to manage the Section 204 witnesses process.
That is correct, Commissioners.
I then would like you to go to read item 10 on the same page.
No politically related cases may be withdrawn without detailed and cogent written notes in the C clip of the docket or office file.
So there was a requirement that in respect of the cases that the task team was dealing with, should there be a decision to withdraw against a suspect, that must be done only after a detailed and cogent written report is filed in the docket.
That is correct.
Then we go back to 196, the main letter. And we're at paragraph 2. At paragraph 2, it concludes, this directive set out the challenges which General Khumalo had raised. Despite this arrangement, there was a continued unhappiness regarding the task team not having dedicated capacity. So that was, it would sound like the DPP's attempt to address General Khumalo's concerns and challenges in the province. And she concludes here that even that was not enough. Is that your own understanding as well?
That is correct.
She then looks at a different issue at paragraph 3 and says, I also wish to bring to your attention a correspondence with the Minister of Police, Mr. B.H. Cele, or which the Minister of Police, Mr. B.H. Cele, had forwarded to our NDPP advocate Batoyi. This correspondence is dated 24th of May, 2019, and she states that the purpose was to highlight the challenges regarding the successful prosecution of politically related cases allocated to the task team. In this regard, she refers to a document she calls Annexure B, and that, Commissioners, will be found at page 202. And General, if we could turn to page 202. Now, it's a fairly well, not too long, but it's about 6 pages. So if you could just quickly flip through that document and tell the commissioners what that document is. Then we will work through the detail of the document.
It's an NPA internal correspondence from the Director of Public Prosecution in KwaZulu Natal. I beg your pardon. It's addressed to the Advocate Batohi and is from the Minister of Police. If I had to check the signature part of it, which is at page 209, it was signed by Minister of Police, Mr. Kweli, on the, I think the date is 24th of the 5th month, 2019. It's just written, it's not quite clear exactly the date, but it's a letter from the Police Ministry to the National Director of Public Prosecution.
Yes. And this letter is shared with you by Advocate Harrison.
That is correct.
DPP. Let us consider the contents of the letter. And we start at page 203. And I take it that you would be familiar with the facts set out in this letter, in this document, because on my reading, this letter refers to politically related killings in your area of jurisdiction. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, that's correct.
Let's look at the challenges at page 203. The letter highlights challenges identified, and at item 3. At item 3.1, he references section 204, witnesses killed while in the witness protection program, and he gives an example below that. You confirm that?
That's correct.
At item 3.3, same page, the heading is section 204, witnesses turned against the state. And at subparagraph 3.3.1, witnesses who abandoned witness protection program. Can you shed light as to what he's talking about, the minister is talking about there?
Commissioners, I must indicate that, as I've indicated before, that the IMC will be receiving briefing from the team. So part of the briefing to the IMC will be to indicate challenges that the team will experience. And some of these challenges are the ones that are listed in this letter. A typical example of a witness that will turn against the state will be a person that will have a first-hand information. It could be the person was part of the commission of a crime and turn witness, and a person who was directly involved. But because of the delays and challenges, maybe that person is approached by the main suspect. In the hierarchy of this organized killing, you'll find a person who's controlling the purse, a person who's got the money, will coordinate this killing, will not do the job himself or herself, but will pay someone to find the hitman. So even if we arrest a hitman, the person who hired the hitman who have received money is the one that maybe turns out to be our witness. But if that person is compensated somehow or is persuaded somehow not to assist the police, and that's a person who then withdraws his services. But there are reasons of withdrawal, obviously, differ. At times it could be through intimidation that leads into that person turning against the state.
And on the same document, same page 204 on our, no same, overleaf 204, item 4. There is a table there that flows over to page 205, and that table is headed questionable withdrawal decisions by the NPA. And commissioners, we apologize for the poor quality, but to assist, the first column reads station and case number. The second column reads decision, and the third column reads prosecutor. So this table sets out the details of specific cases and the decisions.
The second column?
Decision.
Decision.
So it's a summary of the decision, or the basis on which the put forward for the withdrawal of the case. And the last column indicates who the prosecutor was in that matter. So it's called prosecutor there. It's a list of of 11. And just to give the commissioners perhaps a flavor of the issues that are raised, which lead the drafter of this document to call them questionable withdrawal decisions by the NPA. We will not highlight the names of the prosecutors who were involved. We'll just concentrate on some of the reasons advanced for the withdrawal. So I will ask you to read the reason in respect of case 1.
On case 1, the reason suspect placed on the roll and later withdrawn.
And that was a murder case according to this document, column 1.
That is correct.
The next 2 cases were for intimidation. They too were withdrawn. And please read into the record the reasons advanced for the withdrawal there.
The reasons advanced by the prosecutor here, I quote, "You will feel the heat does not amount to intimidation, which resulted in all 3 cases being declined to prosecute."
Then I will turn over to page 205. Again, I pick a different one. Item 9, that was a case of unlawful possession of a firearm. Please read that reason, the reason advanced for withdrawing that one.
The owner of the security company does not cooperate to rectify the queries regarding the investigation.
And lastly then, item number 11. This is in respect of possession of unlicensed firearm and ammunition.
Unreasonable demanding additional evidence to enroll the case despite overwhelming evidence which link the suspect to the case.
Yesterday you testified to the novelty of the task team approach in investigation.
Sorry, before you do that.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Lo, just so that I make sure I understand, the reasons where it says decision in that column,
Yes.
are these the notes of the prosecutor, or this is Minister Cele saying it's unreasonable to demand additional evidence? I'm looking at your example 11, right, where it says unreasonable demanding additional evidence to enroll the case despite overwhelming evidence which links the suspect to the case.
Yes.
Is this the prosecutor saying that, or it is Minister Cele raising his concern about the decision not to prosecute?
So my understanding of the table we've gone through, as if we consider it in the context of the heading, questionable withdrawal decisions by the NPA. So the decision to withdraw has been taken by the NPA, and the issue is that the reasons advanced for the withdrawal are questionable. So that column that is headed decision seeks, as I understand it, to highlight the reason that was advanced at the time of withdrawal. So I did not read this table to include any personal input or opinion by Minister Cele.
Okay.
He was just reflecting what is already on
What is
record
recorded. Okay.
regarding these decisions by the NPA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is still confusing, though.
Okay.
Because I cannot see the prosecutor saying that they unreasonably demanded additional evidence. So probably it's the minister here expressing his own view, and maybe what happened is that it was the prosecutor who was insisting on additional evidence, and so the minister is expressing his view that that was unreasonable because there was sufficient evidence. So this one sounds to be an exception to what you are saying, which is what's in that column is the decision, as was recorded. But
I would perhaps ask that we park the issue for the moment. As we work through the document, we will realize that the minister technically is quoting the information that became available to him regarding all these issues. Because sometimes it gets so specific that it's information he simply could not have. So clearly the source of the information, he is reflecting the situation on the ground. He concludes at page 209 with the findings and recommendations. So I understood that document and the table set out therein not to be expressing his view.
Perhaps to save time, let's
Yes.
just say my co-commissioner, Commissioner Baloyi, did raise this, and let's just leave it at that for now.
Indeed, I hope by
Yes,
the time we
yes.
get to the conclusion of this document,
Yes.
perhaps then we'll have a better understanding. Maybe just a question of how it's expressed.
Yes,
But it would seem to suggest that the last column gives you the name of the prosecutor who was involved. The second column gives you the reason why it was withdrawn. This particular one seems to have a comment that it was unreasonable. The case was ready to go to trial, but there seemed to have been further demand for evidence. Now, it may potentially mean that the prosecutor himself was refusing to take the matter to trial and demanding more evidence, when in essence, practically, the matter was ready.
Yes, and then
Yes.
someone else says that was unreasonable. And because this is the minister's document, it's on that basis that we think that
it might be him.
is the minister expressing that opinion. But as I
We
said,
can flag
in
it.
the interest of time,
We'll find out exactly where that comes from.
yes, let's move on.
The next table, still on page 205, deals with what the author calls the questionable decisions by the NPA. And the headings there are, once again, case number and the charge, and the second column should read decisions. Here, there are two cases, two murder cases, and if you could just quickly highlight what under the column decision advanced in respect of each, General.
The first case is Ntuzuma case 242 of 10/2012. It's a murder case. The NPA guidance to take the case for formal inquest instead of trial, despite strong evidence of premeditated murder. The second one is Plesisler case 2335 of 2018, murder. Unreasonable demanding additional evidence to enroll the case despite overwhelming evidence which links the suspect to the case.
And just for completeness, then at page 206, it's a similar table, but this time it speaks to speedy trials delayed. Do you see that? And
Yes.
it follows the same format. It gives you the name of the accused, the case number, and then the decision advanced. Would I be correct to suggest that all these are matters that the task team at the time, regard being head to the fact that this is generated in 2019, that the task team was concerned about, which is delay in prosecuting matters that have been investigated? Would that be a correct understanding of this document?
That is correct.
Then if we go at 207, under item 8, accused granted bail whilst on bail. Now that goes over till 208. Starts at 207 into 208. We don't have to read them. You could choose an example to highlight what the concern is here about accused being granted bail whilst on bail. There are 6 instances, I think, that are quoted in the letter. We'll deal with any one of your choice.
Yes. 8.1. Sifiso Khadebe, a well-known hitman, was arrested on IB's case 91 of April 2017, murder of Councillor Thobela was granted 10,000 rand bail. While out on bail, he committed another offences as per AB's case 869/2018, the discharging of firearm, and was granted 1,000 rand bail. Mzimkhulu case 5 of 10/2018, possession of unlicensed firearm, granted 1,000 rand bail, and Mzimkhulu case 112 of 10/2018, possession of unlicensed firearm and ammunition, granted 2,000 rand bail. Bail was opposed on all cases, but it was unsuccessful.
So the situation is you have an accused, they are charged, they are arrested, they are granted bail, they are released. And then another case arises, they are arrested, they apply for bail, and they get a second bail, and so it goes. It sounds like it's 4 bails on top of the first. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you agree with what's written at page 207, that that is a concern for you as the head of the political task team, as a member and as a police officer? Is that a concern? And if so, why?
It is a concern indeed. As I said earlier, that this will have been an extract of the briefing that was given to the IMCs about the challenges that you're experiencing with regard to the prosecuting of these cases. That when a person has been accused of a serious murder case, arrested, granted 10,000 rand bail, and you commit other serious crimes thereafter of possession of firearms, but still giving bails, it simply means that the court is not taking serious the risk that this individual has in society. That if he keeps granted bail because of murder and is arrested with a firearm again, and is granted another bail, and again arrested because of the firearm charge, and granted bail again, it simply means that he is allowed to go out there and carry a firearm and do whatever he wants to do with the firearm. The court does not see the need of stopping this person from doing that. And this has a serious consequences towards the witnesses and many other people that are involved on cases that this person is arrested for.
And perhaps for the sake of completeness, let's look at case at page 208, which is a slightly different case, but along, in the same vein, under item 8.6, if you could read that.
Fisokuhle Ntuli was arrested, charged, and sentenced on Patfontein case 50 of June 2016 for 4 times attempted murder charges. He appealed and was granted bail. Whilst on bail, he was arrested and charged on 4 murder cases, as per Nongoma case 30 of April 2016, 391 2016, also Nongoma 88 Nongoma, as well as 127 Nongoma, all of them in 2018.
Yes.
And possession of unlicensed firearm as per Nongoma case 285 of 2017 and Nongoma case 147 of 2018 June that he is alleged to have committed while on appeal.
So this accused is actually charged, convicted, and sentenced. Then he appeals. He's granted bail while he's awaiting his appeal. And in that period, manages to commit 4 more murders.
That is correct.
Okay. Now,
Manages to be charged with a commission of...
that's more precise, legally correct, yes, manages to be charged. Then I think what we have just worked through, which was what Minister Cele at the time communicated to Advocate Baktoy, culminates in certain findings and then followed by recommendations, and that's set out at page 209. I think it is important to appreciate the findings made in 2019, because that gives a sense of the situation as it prevailed in 2019, appreciated even by the minister. So if you could read the findings under item 9 at 209.
Findings reads as follows. The political related cases, especially murder, are organized in nature with different role players carefully identified, that is hitmen, spotters, coordinators, and individuals at the top who are ordering the hits. Bullet 2, most cases are dependent on Section 204 witnesses that were part of the syndicate, especially when the investigation has to be directed against individual on top, open bracket, politicians and entrepreneurs, close bracket. Bullet 3, the involvement of politicians and business people possess a threat of attempts to bribe the criminal justice system personnel. If it fails, then attempts to turn Section 204 against the state. If that fails, then they kill the state witness, which results in the case being withdrawn. Paragraph 4, bullet 4, the lack of dedicated prosecutors to guide and prosecute on allocated cases. Bullet 6, bullet 5, the trial-ready cases being postponed for a longer period due to unavailability of dedicated magistrates. The last bullet, the repetitive granting of bail to accused who are already on bail.
Yes. So those were the findings that Minister Cele drew at the time. Did they accord with your experience and knowledge with the situation as was prevailing in KZN at the time?
That is correct, Commissioners.
And he turns then, lastly, at item 10 by making recommendations to Advocate Batoi. If you could just quickly read those into the record.
Recommendations, 4 of them reads as follows. Bullet 1, a dedicated courtroom for the processing of the politically related cases. Bullet 2, dedicated preferable prosecutors and magistrates to deal with these cases. Bullet 3, appointment of a permanent KZN Director of Public Prosecution. Bullet 4, urgent appointment or utilization of police officials to fulfill the function of the security officers in the Witness Protection Program as prescribed in the Witness Protection Act 112 of 1998, Section 3(5)A, Roman figure 3, and Section 6B.
And he concludes the letter. Now we go back to...
Mr. Law, before you leave this letter, you asked the General whether what is under the findings in those bullets accords with his knowledge and experience at the time.
Indeed.
And he's answered in the affirmative. I want to ask a question, but I don't want to anticipate where you're going to go. I would have done a follow-up of as at the date of the letter which disbands or that seeks to disestablish the PKTT, which is what, in December, these factors in bullets 1, 2, 3 under findings, what the position was. I want to ask that, but if you are going to be dealing with it in your own way, I don't want to interfere with it. So you stop me.
There would have been, we were prepared to deal with it in another way, but it doesn't change the course of anything. It can be dealt with now. Now that the Commissioner has put it out there, perhaps the General can
deal with it. Okay.
No, the General can respond to it immediately.
General, you've had in 2019. You say that you were aware of those factors in bullet 1, 2, 3. And these are the politically related cases, especially murder, are organized in that way described there. Most of the cases are dependent on Section 204 witnesses. And then bullet 3, the involvement of politicians and business people. Is as at 2024, when Minister Mkhunu sends the letter or the instruction to disband the political killings task team, what in your impression and experience is the position? Is it still the same? Is it any different?
It remains the same, Commissioner, that there is a lot of interference with these investigations in different forms, as is listed there, in order to try and close these cases by business people and politicians. And by and large, because they are political cases, the people on the higher level of the syndicates that are involved are the ones that are behind the closures of dockets. So the influence the docket still remains the case today.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. We go back then, General, to Advocate Harrison's letter, and we were at page 196. And we're looking at the last paragraph. I invite us to consider the last paragraph of that letter at page 196. And she states on 23rd August 2019, there was a steering committee meeting. There was a presentation done, and that presentation she attaches as Annexure C. For the record, that Annexure appears at page 210 of file 2. However, that copy is not the best, and I would just for the record like to point out that it is the same plan that General Mkhwanazi dealt with as MK5. No, I make a mistake. We are at 210. Then it's the next one that I ran ahead of myself. We are dealing with Annexure C, the one at 210. If you could turn to that document, General.
Yes, I'm there.
Advocate Harrison says this was dealt with at the steering committee meeting, and it's headed Progress Report, Investigation and Prosecution of Investigation and Prosecutions of Political Related Cases, Steering Committee, 23 August 2019. Now, yesterday morning, you recall, when you informed of the establishment of the task team, you highlighted the various governance structures of the task team, and the chair even asked you about the National Steering Committee. My question is, the steering committee referenced here, if you could look into the content of that document, do you know that steering committee? Is it in any way related to the task team, or is it a different steering committee?
It's a steering committee related to the task team.
So this is this task team steering committee. She goes on to say that, perhaps before we deal with that, let's look at that report at page 220. There are recommendations. Is my understanding correct that this is what is being recommended by the NPA to the task team for adoption?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Can we just quickly read that and understand what was being recommended? And for the record, I know that this is 25th August 2019. If we refer back to the minister's letter, that is from May of 2019.
There are 4 recommendations, Commissioners. The first one, dedicated courtrooms ×2 for the processing of the political related cases, 1 serving the central and northern regions, and the other court servicing the Midlands and southern regions of the province. Recommendations 2, dedicated prosecutors ×6 and presiding officers ×3, preferable from outside the province, to deal with these cases without delay, fear, and compromise. Third recommendation, the use of dedicated correctional center, in bracket, Ebongweni, Kokstad, Super Maximum Prison, close bracket, already identified by the Minister of Justice and Correctional Service for accused of politically related cases to minimize the risk of interferences. The last recommendation on bullet 4, utilization of police officials to fulfill the function of the security officers for state witnesses on political related cases who are on the Witness Protection Program as prescribed in the Witness Protection Act 112 of 1998, Section 3(5)(a), Roman figure 3, and Section 6(b).
Thank you. To your knowledge, this being a presentation to the task team and the recommendations are being made to the task team, were these recommendations accepted by the task team?
It's recommendations that were made which to some degree were accepted, except the challenges that were expressed regarding the dedicated presiding officers on the matter, which will require the Department of Justice, the courts especially, as although the minister was part of these meetings, but there was no magistrate, chief magistrate as part of the team. So that is what then the NPA was going to escalate to the court.
And before at least the 31st of December 2024, what was the prevailing position within KZN insofar as these recommendations are concerned? What had been implemented after the task team accepted some of these recommendations or were able to implement them?
I must indicate, commissioners, that when the team was working up until that period, there has been challenges in some of the presiding officers which led into one complaint against one presiding officer, magistrate, that was registered through the right channels for investigation.
General, I apologize to interrupt. Can we give the commissioners a moment? You're not. Okay, thank you, Commissioner. You may proceed.
I was still saying that there had been some challenges with some of the presiding officers in handling these matters of the task team, which led into one complaint that was registered in Pietermaritzburg against one of the presiding officers. But by and large, the close working relationship between the SAPS and the prosecution team on these cases, the involvement of chief prosecutors as directed by the Director of Public Prosecution, of which I must say when we started she was acting and she became permanent. And when she was permanent, then the structure started functioning well, which happened after the letter of the minister's request to the NDPP. And when the structure started working well, then we started seeing cases being enrolled in court, cases not being postponed for a lengthy period as it used to be before, and majority of cases are being finalized in court within a short period of time. So the improvement, the performance of the courts supports the investigation, and the team is satisfied at this present moment with regard to how the matters are handled in court, and also how the prosecution is involved in guiding the team. And those concerns that the minister had read in written in the letter, which was referred to earlier to the NDPP, citing the challenges that we're experiencing with regard to the decision of prosecutors on matters that we are presenting before them, has been eliminated in that as we are investigating, the prosecution is part of this investigation. So by the time we get to court, we are ready for prosecution. Unlike before when we were raising these concerns, that we're investigating and then hand it over to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor might want to withdraw the case, citing different reasons that made the investigation team to be unhappy. But that has been mitigated by this close working relationship between us. So the situation has vastly improved as a result of these dedicated prosecutors that are part of the team. And also the involvement of correctional services as reflected on the third one, as the Minister of Correctional Service and Minister of Justice and Correctional Service had indicated that the maximum prison of Kokstad would be made available and as well as a close working relationship between the other facilities in KZN, that has made it easier for the detention and the control of access to the suspects in those detention facilities. And the courts are playing, the correctional facilities are playing a critical role in also monitoring the activities that are happening around the people that are arrested. Visitors that are coming to see them, they're able to share with the team that there was this person who came to visit the person that has been detained. And that allows the team to investigate further the involvement of those people so that it helps us to link them to such a person. There's been a lot of success as a result of that, which we thank correctional services for playing that critical role to help with this investigation, not only just to detain the people, but to assist also with the interviews, making the facilities available for the team to have easy access to correctional facilities to allow the team to be able to investigate.
Thank you, General. Before we move to the next point, Commissioners at 196, when I confused myself because I ran ahead, please make a note for yourselves that the annexure D referred to there, it appears at page 223. It is in black and white, but it's the exact document that we have as MK5, which is in color and therefore more legible. If then we could turn over to page 197, General. And I invite you to read into the record paragraphs 2, 3, and the one-line paragraph, no, in fact, 4 and 5, before we get to conclusion. So you can skip the first paragraph on that page. I would like to draw attention to the second paragraph. If you could read from there to just the last paragraph before the heading conclusion. Thank you.
All of the above indicates the amount of work which went into ensuring that the work of the political task team was coordinated so that there was better case coordination and management of same by NPA, but above all, to deal with the prosecutorial challenges that the team and the Minister of Police has raised to the NDPP. I was instructed to have a dedicated prosecutorial capacity which was provided as per the request. The dedicated prosecutorial capacity is headed by the Deputy Director of Public Prosecution, who has advocates under his management who are assigned to guide the investigations, make prosecutorial decisions, and prosecute these matters where there are murder and or attempted murder charges. A database has been retained since the inception of this dedicated capacity. There have been numerous successful prosecutions. There are several high-profile political-related matters or cases on the court roll. Some are in High Court and others are in Regional Court. The dedicated prosecutors continue to provide their prosecutorial dedication to these cases. However, they are also not certain as to what is the position regarding the existence of the team and new cases reported. The task team has its own resources, which assisted with the fast-tracking of the investigations. All of the information above has been set out to show the seriousness that this office made to address the challenges which the task team and SAPS as a whole had raised.
I understand from what you've just read that it is the Office of the DPP speaking through Advocate Harrison about the concerns on the part of the DPP and the NPA office as regards the so-called disestablishment of the task team and the loss of effort made since 2019 to address political killings.
That is correct, Commissioner. As the head of the prosecution in KwaZulu Natal, she was expressing the concern that not only affects her only, but the prosecutors that are working with the team.
And then she draws conclusions. And if you could just read that into the record, please.
It is requested that you assist with providing my office with a response regarding whether the SAPS political task team still exists. The dedicated capacity needs to respond to the dedicated task team. If there is no dedicated task team, then the dedicated prosecutorial capacity will be dissolved, and all new cases will have to be reported to the chief prosecutors in the area where the crime is committed. This office cannot retain dedicated capacity where there is no dedicated SAPS task team. Your correspondence will assist as the unit has to plan for the year 2025-2026. It has its own priorities as per the NPS AOP. As we are all aware, organized crime has become the new focus or priority, and this office needs to plan. I am unfortunately not able to complete the planning because the issue regarding the existence of the task team has not been communicated. At this stage, the only information which one has is that in the media. Your urgent response to the above issue will be appreciated. Signed by Advocate Harrison, dated the 10th of June, 2025.
And that the signature is as Director of Public Prosecutions, KwaZulu Natal.
That is correct.
Just for the record, this letter is addressed to you. Did you have opportunity to respond thereto?
Beside a telephonic conversation that I had with her, I did not formally respond to the letter, commissioners, because it was a time when I was busy trying to intervene with regard to the decision of the minister to dissolve the team, trying to facilitate that this decision must be reversed in order to mitigate these challenges, which, of course, it had not happened, and I can safely say without jumping forward that the further engagement we've had with the DPP in relation to this and the decision of the team has led into the criminal case docket being registered, which we cannot discuss it now. It's subject to all this which has happened.
Sorry,
Yes.
General, having regard to the content of this letter, can you just tell us whether you shared similar concerns as those expressed by Advocate Harrison in the letter?
That is correct, Commissioner. Commissioner will recall that when she starts her letter, she refers to my letter to her. In my letter to her, I'm apologizing for the failure to carry out her task, instruction of arresting that we have failed to do as the police, and explaining the challenges as a result. That's why then she's writing, expressing the same concerns to me. Really, what she summarizes on her letter are the concerns that the team shares with the prosecutors that are working under her. So she's just elevating that to bring it to my attention so that I can, when I engage with my principal, be able to show what the prosecutors are saying with regard to this decision of the minister.
And the consequences going forward. The letter also mentions new cases and what consequences will be in relation to new cases going forward.
That is correct. The engagement I have with her was that as and when the cases are coming, we will still allocate them to the team, and I will still expect the prosecutors that are dedicated to continue. The fortunate position that we are in is that although some of these 121 dockets were taken to Pretoria, quite a lot of other dockets were still in court. And the very same prosecution team was involved in those dockets. So they are still engaged with the team on that level. Not necessarily taking new dockets, but they are still engaged with the team in as far as the courts, dockets that are in court. But as soon as we engage, and then they understand that it is not the IMC that took a decision to disband, it is not the National Commissioner that took a decision to suspend. The team is still on the ground, albeit that is not taking new cases. And what I'm starting to do as a complainant in this matter, by registering a complaint officially for criminal investigation and explaining to her from what we have discovered as to what is the cause of this instruction. And she took comfort in that of saying, then her prosecutors will remain in the team. She understands that this might be another crime that is committed on the side to try and frustrate the work that the team is doing. But as we explain later on our statement during this course of this commission, the picture is going to become clear as to why we end up continuing taking this decision of saying the prosecutors remain in the team, because there's an understanding of what is really going on that leads into this letter.
You referred to a case that has, quote unquote, been registered, but of course you said you are not going to go into any detail in that regard. But can you please just describe fully what that case is about?
Commissioner, it's a defeating the ends of justice case. There is an investigation that is underway. You
say you are the complainant in it, and the complaint being against whom?
The defeating the end of justice case that I reported against the people that were involved with regard to the stopping of this investigation. I could mention the people that I'm suspecting, I'm accusing of this, but maybe it will be better, I'll be in a better position towards the end of my appearance before the commission that I could conclude and say, therefore, these are the people, after having put reasons as to why I'm pointing at them. If I put them up now, it might be a problem.
That's enough. I just wanted to get an idea of what the case is about, and that's enough for my purpose.
Thank you.
Let us take the tea adjournment and come back at 11:15. Let's adjourn.
General, I would like to invite us to consider a different document now that we've concluded with Advocate Harrison's letter. And that is MK13 in file 2. And it starts at page 254.
Ms. Silla,
Yes, Commissioner.
you went through that letter with the general, the letter from the Minister Kweli then,
Yes.
which has those tables and it lists areas of concern.
Indeed.
The significance of what you were discussing or of that letter is not clear as it relates to the terms of reference. Just so that it's not lost on us. It's one thing to read an interesting document, but what is sought to be conveyed in the evidence of the witness and how it speaks to anything that we are concerned with is not clear. Will you be dealing with that at some point?
No, I won't. I'm ready to address it now.
Okay, please.
To locate it in its proper context, the annexure that the General put up is annexure MK12, which is the letter from Advocate Harrison. It's Advocate Harrison's letter which has got annexures to bolster the points she makes in her letter. And that is what caused us to go to these annexures, including the one that you referenced, written by Mr. Nhlanhla. So if you recall, Commissioner, Advocate Harrison in MK12 sets out the history and the issues that had been identified and the response to those challenges. So Minister Cele's letter technically captures the challenges as were communicated to the NPA. And thereafter, then we deal with the next document, which was the DPP's response in KwaZulu Natal to those challenges, culminating in their participation in the task team to find a solution to the very challenges that were highlighted.
I understand its significance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just follow up? So it's
Yes.
all about the coordination
It's all about the coordination.
between the task team and the NPA.
Yes. And in fact, read in the context of Advocate Harrison's letter, it gives a perspective from the NPA standpoint as to the logic and justification for the very coordination you reference. Up until we dealt with Advocate Harrison, we considered that coordination from SAP's perspective, from the police perspective. And Advocate Harrison gives us the same view, but from the NPA's perspective. Thank you. So then, General, I'd invited us to go to annexure MK13, starts at page 254. Before we deal with the contents of this document, can you just identify for the record what it is?
Commissioners, this is a memorandum between the South African Police Service, KwaZulu Natal, as well as the NPA in KwaZulu Natal, with the intention to improve the working arrangements and the performance between the two entities or two departments.
If we turn then to page 257.
Before you do that, Ms. Zille,
Yes.
at page 255, General, is where the very last line, it says NPA/SAPS KZN. What is PEOF, REOF, and DEOF?
Commissioners, the EOF stands for Efficiency Optimization Forum. The letters that are preceding those EOFs really refers to the area of operation. The P stands for province, the R stands for region, and the D stands for district.
Thank you, General.
General, I thought I was interrupting. Commissioner Baloyi, I would like to refer you to page 264 of that same document. 264, and that the list of the acronyms used in this document, and that includes the acronyms you referenced at page 255. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. General, I'd referred you to page 257 of that document. It's a signature page. Could you confirm the date of signature and who appended their signatures on that page?
The first signature on the page is the signature of the Director of Public Prosecution in the province of KwaZulu Natal. At the time, she went by the surname Zungu, and she's now Harrison. It's the same person that signed that, and together with myself as the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu Natal.
And when was this document signed?
This document was signed by both parties on the 26th of August 2022.
There is a paragraph there preceding these signatures. It reads, the signatories hereof, being duly authorized thereto, determine an issue hereby the official terms of reference for successful coordination of NPA and SAPS operations outcomes. Confirm that.
That's correct.
I then would like you to, we work briefly through this document, and for this purpose, I would like you to turn to page 259. And just to read into the record item 1, this is under the heading Establishment and Responsibility of Efficiency Optimization Forums. This is item 1.
The established forums are to be known as KwaZulu Natal NPA SAPS Efficiency Optimization and Oversight Forums for the consideration of NPA and SAPS performance.
And still on the same page, further down in the middle of the page, composition of the District Efficiency Optimization Forums, DEOF. That paragraph sets up the composition of the forums and highlights that the NPA, under item F, the NPA will retain chairmanship of the forum. Is that correct?
That is correct.
My question is, that was as at the date of signature, which was, you said, in 2022.
That is correct.
Up until the attempt at disestablishment, was that situation prevailing? Was it still the NPA that retained the chairmanship?
The situation still prevails up to that date and beyond.
And if we turn over, leaf at page 260, under the objectives of the forums, if you could read those objectives into the record.
The objectives of the forum are to A, ensure that all courts achieve the targets in terms of outcome 3, outputs, and operational objectives. B, monitor progress with regard to the achievement of joint targets. C, identify and address challenges encountered in meeting targets. D, identify and address specific crime types, modus operandi, crime trends in hotspots. E, optimize performance of the NPA and SAPS in the KZN province with the end result of the people of this province being and feel safe.
Those objectives, as were established in 2022, are they still applicable to the forums as we speak, whether or not legally the task team has been disestablished?
These objectives are still applicable to date, Commissioners.
And lastly, on this document, page 261, under the heading Meeting of the District Efficiency Optimization Forums, I just want to highlight items 1 and 2, if you could read those.
The meetings of the forum shall take place monthly. If any urgent matter arises, the chairperson may convene a special meeting to discuss such a matter.
So it was anticipated at the time that the meeting will take place at least once a month, and could be more.
That's correct.
If the need arose. That's as far as I want to engage with this document, General. But before we move on, is there anything you want to highlight to the Commissioner regarding this particular document, this Memorandum of Understanding?
Commissioners, as you'll see on the signature on this document, as I had read on the record, or indicated on the record, as it's reflected on page 257, that is dated the 26th of August 2022. I had indicated yesterday that I was appointed as a provincial commissioner in the province of KwaZulu Natal in April 2021. So, on top of the challenges that we experienced with regard to the workings of the task team, we also had challenges in general with regard to the cooperation between the police and prosecution in order to achieve the same objective in the province. That's why we felt it's important for us to have a formal structure of working between us and the NPA, which is not only applicable at the provincial level, which is not only focused on the task team work alone, but on the working arrangement from the local level to the regional level as well as the provincial level between the South African Police Service and the NPA. So this is what led into the development of this document using both legal teams of the SAPS as well as the prosecution. That allows us to have this better understanding and a good working relationship between the two of these departments in the province of KwaZulu Natal.
Now, Commissioner Balo.
Yes. At that page 261, where you read item 1 and 2, item 10 states that minutes are to be forwarded monthly to the DPP, the SAPS Provincial Commissioner, and the Deputy Provincial Commissioner Crime Detection. Why was this considered necessary? What was the purpose of having that?
The Commissioner will notice that there is a district, there is a region, and there is a province, EOF. So what is happening in the lower forums, whatever they're discussing in the lower forums, it is important for the higher structures to get to know, meaning they will have sat and engaged and deliberated on matters at the district level. Whatever the meetings that they've held and the discussions that they had amongst them, it must be elevated to the higher structure, which is myself and the DPP, because we have to monitor whether there is any compliance with the directive and this MOU that we've put together, so that when we meet in our forum, we take into consideration matters that already came from the bottom, and we can also intervene early enough if there are challenges in those structures at the bottom. That's why what you just read, Commissioner, is the lower level. When it says these minutes must be forwarded to the higher structures, you'll see the higher structures is reflected on the same document. The following page is 262, the Provincial Optimal Forum. So that's where whatever minutes discussed on these two lower structures will end up in that forum. And that forum, the chairmanship will rotate between myself and the DPP as we are managing this process.
Thank you, Commissioner. General, that we've now dealt with the facts as they stood on the ground regarding the functioning of the task team, the coordination with the NPA, and basically the establishment of a formal structure to govern that relationship. Yesterday, we dealt with a number of reports that you stated the task team had filed. Are there any comments you want to make before we move to the next topic as regards all the information you have provided about the task team and its efficiency?
Commissioner, I think for me as the head of the police in the province of KwaZulu Natal, I felt it's important to demonstrate that my efforts starting from the day I became aware of the letter of the minister leading up to the 6th of July were all aimed at making sure that I protect this working arrangement of ours to administer justice to the communities out there. That when we try by all means to make the system work between the South African Police Service, the prosecution, the courts, and the correctional facilities, that entire value chain does not get disturbed. So we must understand the challenges in between, and we put measures in place to try and mitigate those challenges. But if you have another superpower structure coming from outside and want to disturb this process, or there are players within this system that are in cahoot with the people that are supposed to be our clients outside, that want to disrupt the working of this justice system, it is therefore important for us to do something about it. So that's basically what I was trying to communicate in all what we have discussed thus far with regard to the team's formation and how it's been working, and what is the general working arrangements between us as the police together with the NPA, the courts, and correctional facilities in the province of KwaZulu Natal.
General, if we can just go back to page 186. The letter, yes. It's 9. Are you there, General?
Yes, I'm there.
The last paragraph says a preliminary report has to be submitted to the Minister by the 20th of January 2025. The final and closing report must be submitted to the Ministry Management Executive Committee meeting late January 2025, the date of which will be communicated as soon as possible. As far as you know, were those reports generated and submitted to the Minister?
Commissioner, I would be lying if I say I know, because I never engaged with the Minister on this. And I, as a person heading policing in the province of KwaZulu Natal, where this task team is located, I was never asked to finish any report that is going to be directed to go to the Minister. So perhaps maybe the project manager, which is Gerald Khumalo, might have been approached by the National Commissioner, and if that happened, I don't know. However, I am aware that there's been meetings between the Minister and the National Commissioner and Gerald Khumalo regarding the same subject, which one of the meetings took place just after my parliamentary appearance, which took place on the 6th of March, I'm told. I was never invited to that meeting, so I wouldn't really know what they were discussing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Khumalo. We are now at, technically, page 50 of your statement, General, if we could turn to that. And we have dealt with up to and including paragraph 145. We turn to a new topic now, and it's the efforts to stop the disbandment. With regard to what you said, set out in paragraphs 146 to 150, can you make some comments? What steps you took?
Commissioners, as I have outlined here on what I've tried in terms of me trying to deal with, which I became aware of on the 2nd of January regarding the letter of the Minister and the task team, and this up until the 6th of July. My efforts have been made to stop the eventual disbandment of the task team, which has a direct impact in how we administer justice in the province of KwaZulu Natal, which will have a negative impact if it's not addressed. So I have indicated in the past, last week, yesterday and previously this morning, that I had engaged the National Commissioner upon becoming aware of the existence of this letter, and the National Commissioner, who indicated that he was not aware about the directive, where the directive come from.
Sorry to interrupt you, General. Why don't you perhaps ask specific questions with regard to what you may want to direct the General's mind to? I'm thinking there was some detail on this yesterday.
Yes.
I'm just trying to avoid a situation where we have a repetition.
Indeed.
For example, I contacted the National Commissioner, and then I asked the National Commissioner to make contact with right up to even the President. So I just want to avoid
Absolutely,
a repetition of all that. I'm by no means suggesting that there aren't issues that you may be wanting to cover on this topic. That's why I'm suggesting that perhaps go to the specifics and ask questions that relate to the specifics.
I shall. Thank you, Chair. I do take the point. The question was really leading us to paragraph 151 in the context of his evidence from the afternoon yesterday and this morning. and the steps he took by engaging internally with the SAP's internal structures. It then leads to paragraph 151 and a particular conclusion drawn in paragraph 151. Are you there, General?
Yes, I am, Commissioner.
Perhaps the best would be for you to read that paragraph into the record.
On the 27th of January 2025, during the Police Day celebrations, I was interviewed by the ENCA media who were present in these celebrations. During this interview, I mentioned that I believe that the minister issued the directive to disband the political killings task team because someone had whispered in the minister's ear that the team was investigating cases that might link his or her associates. The political killings task team should be disbanded. My conclusion in this regard was informed by the facts that objective evidence within the police structures militated against the dissolution of the task team. I concluded, therefore, that the decision was influenced by information other than that at the disposal of the police and serve the interest of those impacted by the ongoing investigations.
And perhaps I should ask you to read 152 and 153, because that will conclude this chapter.
In that interview, I also stated that there should not be someone from head office influencing the minister to destroy or attempt to halt investigations. In other words, the PKTT was now fighting criminal syndicates involved in the political killings on the other hand, and at the same time had to contend with forces within the state apparatus indirectly fighting the PKTT through the executive, the minister, and highly placed members of SAPS with the view to sabotage critical investigation. I was aware that after this interview, the target on my back had grown exponentially. However, I simply could not keep quiet and allow the minister to take his drastic action. At this stage, I did not yet know the person I mentioned in the interview, Mr. Brown Mokgotsi, who it has since been confirmed by the minister himself is an associate of the minister, was linked to Mr. Nhlanhla, who is a prominent cartel member currently under investigation in Gauteng and a direct target of the organized crime unit investigating, as assisted by the members of the task team as part of GCI Ops.
So if we understand you correctly, the point you make in those 3 paragraphs is that based on the information you have now shared with the Commission regarding the political task team, the minister's decision to disband in the light of that, all that information, or the minister's decision is inconsistent with the weight and the value of the workings of the task team as you have shared with the commissioners. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We turn then to your briefing of the 6th of July. And we start that conversation from page 52. And that is under the heading Allegations Advanced Against Various Arms of Government, Functionaries and Other People. Do you see that?
Yep.
At paragraphs 154 to 158, you make some preliminary comments before you engage with the specific allegations. And I would like you to highlight those key comments which, in my understanding, invite the Commission and the listeners to consider the allegations that you will now be addressing in a particular context. You don't have to read everything that is there, if you could just highlight.
On the 6th of July, I made these allegations of impropriety and criminality on the part of some against a person serving in the different arms of government and within the entire law enforcement. And that includes some members of business communities and perhaps some politicians. So these allegations I made after the careful consideration of the facts that were in my disposal. And those facts were supported by the investigations that were ongoing and the reports that were in those investigations, which then suggested that indeed there are some people that are involved in trying to frustrate the police work that will involve politicians, and evidence that shows police officers that are involved, as well as some people within the higher office of our justice system which are in courts. That include prosecutors that are involved with these criminal syndicates operating in South Africa.
From page 56, you deal then with the allegations as they relate to politicians. And just to give us context, at 50, you break up politicians into two groups. The one is headed Parliament at page 56, and then at page 61, there is a subheading, the executive. You confirm that?
That's correct.
And so far as Parliament is concerned, you raise concerns regarding two members specifically in this.
That's correct.
You had stated that in your paragraph I think you had indicated that in respect of each category, you will highlight one instance or one person who falls under that particular category. But it should not be understood that the complaint is confined specifically to the one person. So when we deal with politicians, much as you highlight two here, your contention is that the problem spreads beyond the two and that there are actually more. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that the evidence of subsequent witnesses to follow will deal with the detail of the other persons per category. Is that the approach adopted?
That's correct.
With that in mind, then let's turn to page 56 under politicians and specifically Parliament. Please explain the contents of your paragraph 165. You explain how you intend to deal with this issue.
On this specific paragraph, Commissioners, I want to focus my address in part to the role that is played by Mr. Fadel Adams, who is a Member of Parliament. And in briefly, I will also touch on the role played by Ms. Colin Barnett, who is a member of Democratic Alliance.
At 166, you summarize the concerns you have regarding Mr. Adams.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Can you read that into the record so we appreciate?
The main concern with Mr. Adams are mainly two. The first one is the unauthorized access to the intelligence information and his reckless use thereof. The second one is the abuse of his...
Apologies, General. At this stage, because there are specifics about individuals who, according to the General, are implicated, I think I should place it on record and make this public announcement.
Yes, Chair.
That because of time constraints, as I understand from
Indeed.
the evidence leaders, and on my understanding, the statements having been finalized the day before the hearings, it was not practical for implicated notices to go out timeously and before the hearing. But the evidence leaders have undertaken that notices will go out. Transcripts of the evidence relevant to each implicated person will also be sent out to the implicated persons. So in that sense, the implicated persons will not be prejudiced.
Indeed.
They will be able to have a look at the evidence that has been led, and indeed even the statements themselves will be shared with the witnesses for them to consider their positions and to address the implication insofar as it relates to each one of them as best they can. So they will be afforded a full opportunity as to how to address what implicates them. Am I recording the position correctly?
Absolutely correct, Chair, I confirm. And to point out that the provision of the rules, which require us to the extent that we are able to notify of implication before the witness is led. This is one of those rare instances when it was not possible. As the Chair will recall, the witness's statement was dated the 16th of September, which is the day before we started. They were prepared. The difficulty was the service in that short period of time, so they were struggling with service. Had we insisted on complying with that aspect, then we would have had to postpone the hearings, and we understood that was a factor
that was a no-no.
Indeed, Chair. So it's in those circumstances that we found ourselves having to lead General Mkhwanazi without the notices having been received by the respective persons. And we do undertake, as the Chair correctly points out, to provide all the facts and material that support the implications that General Mkhwanazi advances to each specific person that is dealt with in General Mkhwanazi's statement, as soon as his testimony is done, Chair.
You may continue, General.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was still reading the second concern that I have, the abuse of his seeming influence on the police structures at the highest echelon.
So you deal with the first part, with the first concern, which is unauthorized access to intelligence information and his reckless use thereof, from paragraphs 168 to 173. If you could just highlight to the commissioners what your concern is and why you contend that he had unauthorized access to intelligence information and that he dealt with such information in a reckless manner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Maybe before I continue this, I think it's important to remind the Commission and the public in general on my opening comment yesterday, which is on my statement, I think it's on page 6, where I indicated that as the police are investigating crime and we analyze information that is presented and evidence before us, a certain picture or a particular trend emerges. And that trend forces us to investigate further. So as we investigate further, we begin to see a certain trend that we pick up that is involved in that criminal investigation we are conducting. Once we see that picture, then in this case, the picture that we see that seems to undermine the administration of justice in the Republic, it is for that reason that we then are in this state here before the Commission to try and explain the picture that we've been seeing, so that one doesn't wonder or question, why do we jump to that specific politician? It is due to this analysis and investigation that we are conducting that brings us to these individuals. so that we can flag and see for the Commission to assist us whether our conclusion is justified or not. But we are convinced that it is justified, that what we are presenting. So Mr. Adams appeared to have came into the position of an intelligence information. And this information is classified on its nature that Mr. Adams should not be in possession of. So it is an information that is intended for another structure of Parliament. If it comes to his position and as a lawmaker, as a person who is serving in Parliament, he ought to know that when I'm in possession of information from crime intelligence that is classified, it must be handed over to the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence so that it can be interrogated, regardless of the status of that information. So that is expectation that one has towards a lawmaker, such as Mr. Fazal Adams, who is currently serving in Parliament. Because this classified information we are referring to here, it's involving personal information of individuals that is deposited at crime intelligence or extracted by crime intelligence when the crime intelligence is conducting the vetting process for security clearance for individuals. It's a very sensitive information because it digs deeper to your personal information, your relatives, your criminal records, and everything that the state wants to test in order to confirm whether you qualify to be given a security clearance certificate or not. Such a clearance will then allow you to be in possession of sensitive material. The same applies to the members of the Joint Standing Committee in Parliament. It is only those members of Joint Standing Committee in Parliament that are vetted, and their information is in the disposal of this intelligence structure. And once they pass that vetting, certificates are issued to them. And that is the entry for those politicians to become members of the Joint Standing Committee. It is not open for everyone. So Mr. Adam, unfortunately, does not serve in that Joint Standing Committee. I do not know what is the reason that he is not part of the Joint Standing Committee. Perhaps that he might be able to answer himself. But in this regard, we know that he serves in the Portfolio Committee of Police, which is an oversight structure of government, and he's there as a public representative that holds us accountable on how we perform our function as a police on an open account of this that is allocated to the South African Police Service. But on the use of any funds on the secret account, the accounting role for that is within the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence as regulated by the National Strategic Act of Intelligence that regulates how matters of state secrets must be handled, including the budget, resources, and otherwise. So Mr. Adam is not part of it, but recklessly he handles intelligence information not only within Parliament, but he takes it out to the public.
Understanding your concern then, and you pointed out that he does not sit on the Intelligence Committee within Parliament.
May I ask this of you, Ms. Sillo, to what term of reference does this testimony relate?
It relates to the second part of what he'll be dealing with, which speaks to the concern about it's basically access to unauthorized information, and as a parliamentarian, dealing with that information in a manner inconsistent with the position he holds. But then it leads to the second aspect at 166.2, which is the use of that same information to abuse his seeming influence on the police structures at the highest echelons. That will then lead to, quote unquote, triggering a process through the Minister of Police to take certain steps that the General believes it's abuse of office and it interferes with the workings of the police. The chair will recall that when General Mkhwanazi started and explaining the various arms of government, of the police, he referenced crime intelligence, which though is located within the police, it is regulated in terms of the Intelligence Act. And it is the abuse he believes is perpetrated by some people.
Maybe let's leave it.
Okay.
Perhaps at some stage, whether it's when you make submissions
Indeed.
or after all the evidence has been laid, we will see how the strings will be pulled together.
I'm happy with that approach.
But I've raised the question.
Yes, it's noted. It's noted, Chair. My question to you, General, was how then would you suggest this specific parliamentarian ought to have dealt with that information?
Well, as a parliamentarian who is a lawmaker, it's a person that's supposed to know the law. The National Intelligence Act is the law that lawmakers must know and comply with. It would be expected that he knows that this information, it's an information that's supposed to be deposited to a different structure or an oversight body of Parliament, and so that it can be handled with sensitivity that it deserves. But unfortunately, he did not do that.
And from paragraph 173 onwards, you deal with how you say Mr. Adams actually dealt with that information. Can you take us through that?
Commissioners, as I'm outlining again here, I've said when I started, we investigate the picture emerge that calls for further investigation. So this commission is here to help us answer the question of how involved are the politicians and other private people, including police officers, how are they involved in interrupting the work of the security cluster in administering this criminal justice system. This is but one that you're going to see at the end, how Mr. Adams' action is impacting to the work that the team is doing. And again, posed to say this with respect, I had indicated that when we were discussing in length, we were talking about the political killings task team. We mentioned that Khumalo is the project manager there. Khumalo, who is a divisional commissioner of crime intelligence. We presented that Khumalo at crime intelligence becomes aware about what's happening in Gauteng province. And he registers a case internal within crime intelligence that is running as a project inside crime intelligence that is in charge of. It is that case that links to these high profile, the Mulifers, the Matlalas that get arrested. As you're going to see the picture late, it is an operation within crime intelligence, the GCI ops, not the PKTT. These actions that follows from there onward, how they're going to link to the work of that GCI ops. That's a picture we're going to show you towards the end, commissioners. So, but what we know here is that we're tracing steps back as when an incident happens. We go back and we ask, we investigate what led into this, going backward. So, although we are explaining it here where it started, but not how we investigated. We investigated by starting at the result of something, and we backtrack to establish, like a crime scene. We're going to come to court and say, so and so killed that person. But we start by attending the crime scene. We collect evidence, we track back everything until we find the reasons. Then we say, this is a suspect who conducted this crime. So this is exactly what we are doing now. We are telling you who did what, which eventually will result into the interruption of the criminal justice system, which this commission is assisting us to investigate. So, Mr. Adams, on the 29th of October in 2024, he went to Cape Town police station and he opened 3 cases. And these cases, I'm going to invite you, should be public record, to even look at what is contained on his complaint. It does not even warrant the registration of a case. There's no elements of crime on his complaint. But nonetheless, he opened the complaint. And the complaint is really about the vetting procedures within crime intelligence, a space that he ought not to play in. So he takes this sensitive information and he goes to the police station and he goes and opens a case at the police station, which therefore means he has access to the records within crime intelligence of the secret information that he should not be in possession of. But he takes that information, he goes to a police station, he opens the case about that. And this information, as I said, the vetting procedures of the South African Police Service, where the allegations that the police is manipulating systems within the vetting process. This is a person that, as I said, Commissioner, is not within the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence in Parliament. He's in an open committee. But he speaks, he opens a criminal case about the matters of crime intelligence. Mr. Adams further claims that there's an abuse of the secret fund account. He does not have an oversight. He doesn't even know the budget allocated because he's not part of the committee. But he claims here that there's an abuse of the secret fund account at crime intelligence. So his accusation, his claims, allegation is that this secret fund account, these funds are being channeled to places where they're not supposed to go, including the procurement of vehicles for a political task team in KwaZulu Natal. We demonstrated yesterday about the budgetary expenditure and everything from the team, where it comes from. But he claims here that this money from the secret fund account is used to purchase vehicles of the political task team. Surely, he, as a complainant, you would provide proof for this. I like to believe that as a complainant, he should be able to demonstrate that he has an evidence that this money was spent here for this resource. He further claims on his complaint, Commissioners, that this political task team is a private entity that provides service to the former Minister of Police, Begicele. That's what he puts on the documents, on the A1 statement that he deposited at the police station. He accused that the team is basically an armed force of Gerald Cele. That's his accusation. And the other case that he opens, Commissioners, is that he raises concern or is challenging the appointment of one Ms. Mukwele, who was appointed as a technical support service at the Crime Intelligence Division. So he claims that this appointment was irregular and it should not have happened. So these cases are registered on the 29th of October in Cape Town, 29 October 2024 in Cape Town. 2 days later, Commissioners, on the 31st of October, Mr. Adams, he raised the same complaint and he lays the same charges, exactly identical, at Orlando Police Station in Johannesburg. 2 days later, 29 and 31, and these are records on our case files in the police we have. They can be obtained by the commission if you so wish. He complains that he raised these complaints to Gauteng. And they are registered on the 31st. 3 cases are registered in Orlando Police Station. 29, 31st. On the 1st of November, Mr. Adams sends an email directly to the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mchunu. He is complaining to the minister, and his complaint says that there are efforts to undermine investigation related to these cases, and therefore is requesting the minister to intervene. His email is attached as a reference that he sent to the Minister of Police.
General, if I may assist, that email you reference at paragraph 176 of your statement, and that is MK14, starting at page 265.
That's correct.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So these are the timelines that I'm putting before the Commission. That 29 October, 3 cases in Cape Town. 2 days later, 31st of October, 3 cases, similar complaint in Orlando and Johannesburg, some 1,500 kilometers other apart. A day later, a complaint to the minister that the 2 cases or the 2 provinces where he registered cases, there's some efforts to undermine investigations. So he's got evidence that there's an effort to undermine investigation on both of these provinces. That's why he then sends a complaint to the Minister of Police. So it is interesting indeed to know that this claim that Mr. Adams presented in Cape Town, he claims on his email that he knows that there was an interception of the investigation and the docket had been intercepted. So I really don't know what does that mean. That you register a case in one instance, Commissioner, a complaint is a statement is deposited at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The case is registered at 8 o'clock in the evening. But 2 days later, he claims an interception. Perhaps even by the time he claims, that docket has not even been allocated to the investigating officer. But he is already moving to another province to complain about that. So this is what he puts in a complaint to the minister, that there's interception of the docket in Cape Town, and he further claimed that he had been notified that the Gauteng Police Department had followed the same modus operandi as the Western Cape Provincial Commissioner and is interfering in the investigation process. So this is one man, a member of parliament, that is convinced that within the period is open the case, there's an interference already. And he leaves the one province, he goes to another one, he opens a case, 24 hours later he reaches a complaint that they are following the same modus operandi as Cape Town. So how we concluded to this, I really don't know. Perhaps he will be invited here to come and explain why he reached this conclusion. But as we investigate, commissioners, you're going to pick up some linkages of his involvement in this work that the team are doing in uncovering the criminal syndicates within the police. So this is the build-up to such. That's why we are focusing on this. This complaint, upon landing at the minister's office, first he sends an email to the minister, and after that follows another emails to the chief of staff of the Minister of Police and other people that he copied the emails to. But the first one was directly to the Minister of Police. Subsequent to that, the minister's office directed this complaint to the office of the National Commissioner. This is a complaint that comes on the 1st of November. The National Commissioner directs the Minister's office directs this to the National Commissioner's office, and they request the National Commissioner to respond by the latest, the 4th, which is 3 days later. They must give a response into these allegations of Mr. Adams. The National Commissioner's office acted on that complaint by directing a division in the police that is responsible for dealing with complaints, which is a division inspectorate. The report from the Divisional Commissioner, Lieutenant General Jacobs, is attached and marked MK15 in this regard. Gerald Jacobs and the team, upon receiving this complaint, they acted upon by trying to reach out to the complainant, Mr. Adams. They were not successful in trying to get him to come and elaborate on this complaint. And they read through the complaints and the dockets that he has registered at the 2 different provinces. They could not find anything that justified his complaint to say there was an interference with the investigation. And as a result, in their conclusion, Gerald Jacobs, which is summarized in the report that is sent to the National Commissioner, of which the National Commissioner responded to the Minister, was that the complaint of Mr. Adams was premature, and the police should be allowed to first investigate this matter, and upon the investigation, and maybe the further analysis can be done whether there is any interference or not. But the biggest problem on this is the fact that the complainant himself does not avail himself when he is contacted by the people who are now investigating his complaint. He does not avail himself to be engaged in order to form the basis of his complaint in this matter.
And if I may, General, for record purposes, the report of General Jacobs is an extra MK15 to General Mkhwanazi's statement, and that starts at page 270, Commissioners. Thank you.
Can I proceed?
No, he wanted to know if he may proceed. The commissioners were engaged, so we thought...
No, he may.
He may, okay.
Just engaging with Annex MK15. Yeah.
Okay. Before you turn to page 270, please, that's MK15. And please explain who, you say the author is Lieutenant General Jacobs. Who is he? And just highlight the date of that report. Then you can deal with its conclusions.
The report from Gerald Jacobs is dated the 30th of July 2025.
And you say who is, what position does General Jacobs hold and in what body?
Commissioners, if you allow me to indicate on this, it's a report that comes out from Gerald Jacobs as we're interrogating on what he did back then, which then supports the response to the office of the minister, which eventually a response that the National Commissioner had provided to the office of the minister with regard to the fact that they were struggling to get hold of Mr. Adams, and they could not therefore finalize their report. In the same reference, because I want to answer this question of the date of the report, there is on page, in the same annexure, on page 285, the commissioners are going to see that that is an information note that Gerald Jacobs, I'll say that is a report, if I understand that General Jacobs sent via the office of the National Commissioner to the Minister of Police. And in this report, the person who signed is the acting divisional commissioner, who is Major General Nhlanhla, and this acting divisional commissioner was acting in the position of Jacobs at the time. You'll see that one is dated the 4th of November in line with the minister's timelines of dealing with the complaint. Remember, the complaint, Mr. Adams registered on the 1st of November, and the minister's office asked that the response be provided, the outcome of the investigation be provided to his office on the 4th of November. So this was complied with. The response was provided on the 4th of October, as it was signed by the acting divisional commissioner and confirmed by the acting national commissioner at the time on the 5th of November, which is General Sibia. And it landed in the minister's desk, and the minister endorsed his signature on this document on the 8th of November of the same month. So the date that I'm now talking about, of the 30th of July, it's when Jacobs is finishing us with the information that explains what he did back then. So that's why I wanted to make sure that these two dates are not mixed up. The question is, who is General Jacobs? General Jacobs is a divisional commissioner of inspectorate in the South African Police Service. The South African Police Service, being an old department of government, back in the days, it was not the culture within government to have auditors. The culture of auditors is new. So an oversight entities that were available at the time within the police was the inspectorate that was doing an oversight, conducting compliance with policies and directives, standing orders within the police, and the failure thereof will come with consequences. So that's how the division was born. And of course, nowadays we then adopted the King's reports, the recommendations that introduce the audits, and that's why we even have an internal audit in the police that help us to audit the work we do in compliance with both the Act and policies and directives that are issued in the organization. But inspectorate remains within the structure of the police. So that is what General Jacobs is responsible for. So the complaints, when they come into the police, they get directed to the very same structure. So it's basically like in the terms of education, I will say it's a, I don't know whether the inspectors are still there in education, who goes around different schools and check the compliance. That's what inspectorate does. It's like a school principal that checks on everyone in the police. So that is basically the profile of General Jacobs. The good thing about this advantage we have is that General Jacobs was once a divisional commissioner of crime intelligence. So the complaints that talks about crime intelligence, he's in a better position to even understand what's going on. Besides the fact that he worked there, the inspectorate have access to all the departments, all the divisions in the police. So therefore, he had access to dockets, he has access to intelligence, although limited within crime intelligence in terms of secret fund account, but in general, he has access to many places within the police.
Can I find out, if I understand your testimony correctly, so the function of the inspectorate is to act on complaints received against the police and triggers an interrogation and investigation into the alleged conduct?
That is correct.
And subjects the police to scrutiny, the level of which I guess will be determined by the nature of the complaint.
That is correct.
And you pointed out that, and you state in your statement, that General Jacobs, in his report, indicates that he failed despite numerous attempts to engage with Mr. Adams.
That is correct.
Now, I want to turn you to page 280, please, and that is the end, of, the conclusion of General Jacobs' report. And to read item 8, which is the conclusion, his conclusion in regard to the complaint.
On his recommendations on this, you said 287. Am I right?
I was reading the report of the 30th of July, Annexure MK 15, that is the report from General Jacobs.
Yes.
Do you have it? It starts at 270.
Yes.
And I referred you to the conclusion that he draws under 8 at page 280.
Okay, the last paragraph on 280 reads, this office is of the considered view that the process followed to obtain, peruse, and hand over the 7 criminal dockets are above board and conducted without any malice.
Do you know whether there has been any further investigation by the inspectorate regarding the complaints of Mr. Adams beyond this report?
I am not aware of such. Commissioner, I want to, in order not to be confused on this Jacob's letter that we are talking about now, which is reflected from 273 and ending with the paragraph that I just read on 280, which is dated the 30th of July 2025. As you can see, this one ends with Gerald Masimula as a recipient of this report. So this is a report that was recently done as the explanation that Gerald Jacobs was explaining to the National Commissioner with regard to the status of case dockets. So they might have been, I might have put them in the same bundle, but I think it's important for me to differentiate between the two.
Yes.
They're in the same annexure, but the one of Gerald Jacobs and that was investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams, it's a one that starts on number 285 in the same annexure. That one, 285, and it ends with the signature from Inspectorate at 287.
Yes.
Maybe if I may read those recommendations on record on 287.
So the one starting at 285 is the information note.
This information note is actually the outcome of Jacob's investigation as expected by the minister was supposed to be submitted on the 4th.
Okay, and that is dated, for the record, the 4th of November 2024.
Exactly.
Okay. Deal with
So
it,
the recommendations on that one, it reads, there are 3 of them. It says this office recommends that an extension of 10 working days is provided in order for the following to be considered, whereafter a comprehensive report can be provided.
Yes.
Number 1, interview the complainant and obtain a detailed affidavit. Number 2, perusal of all criminal dockets, including the Vilera case 38 of 8/2022. Determine if any other government department is investigating the same allegations. That is the recommendations from Gerald Jacobs. You'll notice, commissioners, that in paragraph 3.2 on the same letter at number 286, I'm going to read on record this paragraph, if you're allowed.
Yes, please proceed.
An officer from Division Inspectorate who was in Cape Town on other official business made several attempts to conduct an interview with the complainant, but due to other commitments, the complainant had to cancel the proposed meetings. The complainant indicated that he could travel to Gauteng if required. That is part of what they are indicating as part of them causing the delay, hence they're asking for the extension of time, that they were not able to interview the complainant in this regard. So that is what Jacobs has done. Now, if I go back into what the SC is asking me in relation to the letter 273,
Yes.
up to the end of that letter. This letter is providing an explanation, commissioners, with regard to the incident that occurred as we are investigating, as I said, the issue of what has happened, and we are going backward, and we discover that the dockets open in Cape Town, and these dockets in Cape Town and in Johannesburg are then transferred or taken by inspectorate. So we wanted to establish how do inspectorate get hold of these dockets? And then inspectorate explained we got hold of these dockets because of the complaint from Ms. Adams. That's why we are going backward. Because we started with what is a complaint, the dockets, where do they come from? They come from here. Let's go and check these dockets. We found in those stations the dockets are not there. Where are they? They are taken by inspectorate. So we gone to inspectorate. Inspectorate, what's happening with this docket? And inspectorate then explains that, no, we got hold of these dockets because we're investigating a complaint. And what thereafter happened to this complaint that we're investigating? What happened to these dockets? And then you're going to see another department coming in that while we're in possession of these dockets, investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams, then suddenly IDEC, which is an independent body within the NPA, newly established, comes to inspectorate to demand the dockets. So this report was explaining that although they took the dockets because of this complaint, but the dockets were eventually taken by IDEC from them. So these dockets ended up with IDEC. But we're going to explain the issue as the SC is trying to lead in terms of putting an evidence of how the sequence of these things has been happening as the picture emerges of answering the question of interference of politicians in the work that we are doing as a police.
Thank you. General, that then would lead you, because you have introduced it already, to paragraph 180 of your statement at page 59.
Yes.
Are you there? And you deal with these issues up to paragraph 185. Once again, if you could just summarize what the complaint is. And this concerns the minister's office. And in relation to the complaint as leveled by Mr. Adams.
Commissioners, we are aware that the National Commissioner, through Jared Jacobs, through the Office of the National Commissioner, had responded on the complaint of Mr. Adams and requested those 10 days, of which the Minister has acknowledgement of that, although he doesn't comment, and that he does on the 8th of November. On the 11th of November, the Minister's Office, Chief of Staff, specifically, Mr. Nkabinde, directed a letter which he signed personally. He directed a letter to IDEC, which is an independent directorate against corruption. And it directs this letter to IDEC in respect of the case dockets that were both open in Cape Town and in Orlando. The copy of the letter is attached and on this statement and marked MK16. This letter, Commissioners will read, and you can see all the case numbers are listed and signed by the Chief of Staff, Mthokozisi Nkabinde, dated the 11th of November, 2024. This letter claims that the Minister's Office is submitting this and requesting, in terms of Section 27 of the NPA Act 32 of 1998. They are alleging that this matter is of a serious nature that involves corruption of the police, and therefore they are inviting IDEC. They are approaching IDEC in terms of Section 27 to investigate these cases. It is unclear why the Chief of Staff decided or elected to act on his behalf, he signs it himself, although using the letterhead of the minister, but he's a chief of staff. Despite the fact that the minister had acknowledged the report from Inspectorate. Despite the fact that on the 8th, the minister acknowledged the report from the Inspectorate about the same complaint, but the Chief of Staff personally signs this letter and he invites IDEC to conduct investigation in terms of Section 27 complaint.
General, apologies, just so we don't lose each other. MK16, which is the letter from the minister's office signed by the Chief of Staff to IDEC, is
Yes.
dated the 11th of November 2024.
Yes.
And your issue is that that letter is dispatched notwithstanding the report provided by the inspectorate to the minister.
That's correct.
And that report is the one you pointed out to, dated the 4th of November, wherein the Office of General Jacobs sought an extension to investigate.
That's correct.
And that was dated the 4th of November. So technically, the inspectorate has not reported back to the minister as to the outcome of its investigations regarding this complaint. Thank you.
The 10 days is not even up at that stage.
It's not over. 10 days is not over. I must indicate, commissioners, that documents ordinarily that comes to the minister, they go via the Chief of Staff. So the Chief of Staff had, in that document we referred to earlier, from the National Commissioner to the Minister, which is authored by Inspectorate, dated the 4th, the National Commissioners acting, signs on the 5th, and the Minister acknowledged that in the Minister's office, they've acknowledged it on the 5th, on the same day the National Commissioner signed it, or the acting, Jaras Beer, on the 5th, they acknowledged that letter on the stamp that is placed on 285 on top right corner there, as an indication that the Minister's office receives it on the 5th. Although the Minister then, after reading it, he then signs it on the 8th. So the letter is authored the 4th, National Commission signs on the 5th, the Minister's office received on the 5th, the Minister himself acknowledged, signs this document on the 8th. So the request of 10 days has not lapsed, because 2 days later, the 11th, we then see the Chief of Staff writes a letter to IDEC. So he's basically asking IDEC to take this document. I must maybe indicate again, commissioners, while we are still on this point, that the complaint of Mr. Adams that was sent to the minister, I said earlier that Mr. Adams sent an email a day after opening a case. He sent an email directly to the minister, and subsequent to that, other emails were then sent to the Chief of Staff. I would invite the commissioners to look at Annex 14. These are emails, reference of emails that Mr. Adams forwarded to the office of the Minister of Police.
Apologies. You are correct. It starts at page 265. The actual email is at 266. Is that the email you are looking for?
And on top of that, now this is emails from Mr. Adams. As you can see, I'll just read one of them. The very first one on 266, it is from Sakiana Frenchman Parliament, and is dated the 1st of November at 8:25 in the morning, 2024. It's addressed to Nkabinde CM at scps.gov.za. That is the Chief of Staff of the Minister. and there are many other emails. And I want to move forward to invite the Commission to look at the same reference on 283.
That's part of an extra MK15.
Yes.
Yes.
283.
Yes, and it's a series of emails as well.
Yeah, those are the trailing emails. The one on top, which I want to indicate to the commissioners that Mr. Nkabinde, who is the Chief of Staff, you'll remember that what I showed you earlier was the email that came from Mr. Adams' office dated the 1st of November around 8 in the morning.
Yes.
At 9:04, the same morning, the Chief of Staff, on the same date, the Chief of Staff sent this complaint directly to the Office of the National Commissioner. The recipients, the Sibula FM Major General and Letogo GH Brigadier, they are both administrators at the Office of the National Commissioner. So this just to show the sequence that the Chief of Staff received it within an hour on the receipt of the email. He already directed this complaint to the Office of the National Commissioner.
I'm looking, sorry to interrupt you, General. I'm looking at the email of 8:25 on the 1st of November 2024. It says in paragraph 2, I was told that the dockets were intercepted. This comes after the dockets have been itemized. And then it refers to another set of dockets. And then it says that the same modus operandi was followed. I'm just trying to place myself, in the place of the recipient of this email. I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about? To just say, I have learned that the dockets have been intercepted, and then you refer to another set of dockets and you say the same thing was done. What exactly was the interception, by whom, at what point, and when you say the same was done, what exactly is the same? I would, if I was the recipient, I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about, and asked for some specificity, instead of then forwarding this to someone else to respond or to make a follow-up. Looking at this, I'm totally lost as to what Mr. Adams was talking about, or MP Adams was talking about. Do you want to comment on that?
Exactly, Commissioners. It is part of what we uncover as we investigate. All these strange things that are happening, that takes us to us reaching the conclusion. That is part of a bigger plan of things. So these are puzzles that we are trying to put together as we're investigating. Because on the same page, Commissioner 283, you have both emails that are reflected there. The one at the bottom comes from Mr. Adams, and look specifically at the time. It is 8:21:01 in the morning of the 1st of November 2024. It is directed specifically to the minister himself, not to Nkabinde, this one. The one I referred to earlier was directed to Nkabinde. This one is strictly to Edward Senzo Mchunu, his email address, the minister directly. I said earlier there were other emails that followed thereafter to Nkabinde, but this one was specific. It went straight to the minister at 8:21 in the morning. On the same date, on the 1st of November, a couple of minutes later, less than an hour, the Chief of Staff at 9:04 in the morning, the Chief of Staff forwarded this complaint to the National Commissioner's Office. So I would have expected the very same minister to ask those questions Commissioner, and because the logic tells you, you open a case the day before and you're complaining today in the morning. So it means overnight there was an interception in your conclusion. I don't think it's a fair process, conclusion that Ms. Adams will have reached. But nonetheless, the minister did not ask Mr. Adams a question, neither the Chief of Staff. But what's interesting here, Commissioners, is that this email from the Chief of Staff to the National Commissioner's Office reads, and I want to quote it on record. Good morning, Major General Sebola. As I said, Sebola is at the office of the National Commissioner. But the Chief of Staff says, the Ministry has received this complaint from the Member of Parliament. In order for the Ministry to respond accordingly, please finish this office with a report in responding to this complaint and the details of the investigating officer who was assigned to investigate these cases. Your report is expected on Monday, the 4th of November at 1500 hours. So this is the timelines that are given by the Chief of Staff, who says the Ministry. I'd like to believe perhaps the Chief of Staff will have received directive from his boss, which is a minister in this regard. But then we come back into what we're talking about, then becomes strange that after the 4th of November, timeline has been met by Inspectorate, although the minister received it on the 5th. The very same Chief of Staff then writes a letter under the minister's signature, heading Ministry, cover letter, and he sends this thing to IDEC.
Now, you referenced the report from the Inspectorate dated the 4th of November, and we understand from that report that a request for an extension was, there was a request for an extension, correct?
That's correct.
And then you say the Chief of Staff directed a request for investigation to IDEC on the 8th of November.
The 11th.
On the 11th of November,
The 11th.
I apologize. If I could refer you to Annexure MK15, it's part of that pack. I see there at page 289 a further report, and this is dated the 20th of November 2024. It's signed by General Jacobs, PA, on his behalf. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, Commissioners.
I would like you to, it would appear that this report is in response to the complaint originally received, specifically regarding the Cape Town files and the Orlando files. That's captured at 2.1.1 and 2.1.2. And 2.2, they deal with the inspectorate deals with the instruction received from the National Commissioner. I would like you to have regard and read into the record the conclusion drawn at 2.2.1.
The 2.2.1 of the information note,
Yes.
that is annexed on 289.
That's correct.
2.2.1, you said?
2.2.1.
Yeah, a report was compiled wherein the allegations that there was interference from both the provincial offices were reported to be unfounded.
And this was in relation to the question the chairperson posed to you about what interference was being referenced. And am I reading the document correctly that General Jacobs, by the 20th of November, had concluded that the allegation of interference was unfounded?
That's correct.
Now, just to close on that, if I refer you to, in the same document, to page 290, it's item 3.3, if you could read that into the...
As part of the protocols to address service complaints, an affidavit is obtained from the complainant. Colonel Phillips of this office was tasked to obtain the affidavit. However, after numerous attempts, it seems as if the complainant is evading the request. Please find Colonel Phillips' affidavit as proof hereof.
Now, am I correct in understanding that the conclusion is in part based on the fact that the inspectorate could not obtain an affidavit as required from the complainant to substantiate the claim?
That is correct.
At paragraph 180, you have dealt with this letter already, that the Chief of Staff refers the same complaint to IDEC. Do you know the status of that complaint within IDEC as we speak?
I'm not privy to the status of the complaint since the dockets were taken to IDEC.
Okay.
They operate outside the police.
And there, as far as you know, there have been no engagements. Do you know whether or not there have been any engagements with the police from the affected police stations, which is Cape Town and Orlando, in respect of these case numbers?
What I am privy to, Commissioners, is that Gerald Jacobs' office, after receiving this docket as part of the investigation, they were approached by IDEC requesting that they hand over those case dockets of Gauteng in the main, and Gerald Jacobs refused to hand over the dockets. And they then, IDEC, wrote to a head of crime detection in the police, it is Lieutenant General Sentumul. They wrote to her requesting the dockets. And she then contacted Gerald Jacobs and asked Gerald Jacobs to release the dockets to IDEC. Now, IDEC is led by an individual, and it is an entity of the NPA as a prosecution. The inspectorate, the detective services, is led by individuals, which is part of the South African Police Service as a department which is led by the National Commissioner. But the correspondence from the NPA to the police does not include the people in charge of the two entities. It includes the head of IDEC and the head of investigation. So the correspondence between the two and the authority is granted by the police detectives and instructing inspectorate to release the docket, and then dockets were then taken by IDEC. To date, those dockets are sitting with IDEC.
I see in your state.
I'm just surprised that there would have been this much effort, this much laborious activity, all of it stemming from a non-complaint by Adams MP. I mean, with that one-liner in respect of the one category of dockets, and then another one-liner in respect of the second category of dockets, and then there's this much activity and effort. In fact, it just does not make sense that the Inspectorate of SAPS should have been required to even give a report. Of course, I'm just expressing a view based purely on the fact that what initiated all of this was a non-complaint. It's totally not substantiated. So what the Chief of Staff, or what he refers to as the ministry, what they should have done was to go back to Adams MP and ask for specificity before all of this laborious activity was then engaged in. Do you want to comment on that, General?
Commissioner, my comment might be to some degree perhaps being biased, because I'm the one that is combing through all what is happening. Perhaps I must indicate to the Commissioner that what led us to able to comb through all this, what has transpired, is in two phases. One is information I get through my sources within IDEC, that there is activities that are happening with IDEC that are not in line with what the purpose of the formation of the entity is. And that there are two structures within IDEC. There's a good structure that deals with the Zondo Commission, and there's another structure that is malicious, that is used as a weapon to further disrupt the criminal justice system operations. So I get that through my sources within IDEC. That's on one. That's how I was able to get this letter. It's not a letter that was given to me on request from the Chief of Staff. No, I got it through the sources. And the Chief of Staff cannot deny it, or the Minister cannot deny it, because it's got his signature. It's a legitimate letter. IDEC has that because they call for the docket informed by this letter, so they can't deny the letter. It's a picture that we started picking up. That is on one side through the information. But secondly, Commissioner, when we see the disruption of the investigation of the Gauteng counterintelligence operations, we then begin to ask ourselves why this is happening. What is much talked about in the media that is not known is the arrest of Gerald Khumalo. So we have this arrest. When this arrest happens, it literally means this project must stop. This investigation of this organized crime must stop immediately because the people are arrested. We start investigating out.
Sorry. What? I hope I've not muted. I hope I've not muted.
No, I
General.
didn't.
Can we still hear the General, all of us?
Yeah, I can hear
at
you.
the back there. Okay. Before you continue, General, I just want to say that, of course, it's early days.
Yes.
And my comment about a non-complaint should not be taken as final. I do not know whether the Chief of Staff of the Minister will be called as a witness, nor do I know whether Adams MP will be called as a witness. Maybe the MP will be able to explain why his complaint was indeed a complaint. And also the Chief of Staff may be able to explain why he considered what I've referred to as a non-complaint to be a complaint. So it is early days, but as presently advised, I just see it as a non-complaint. So until and unless it does get explained, to me it looks like a non-complaint at this stage. My co-commissioner wants to say something.
Sure. Thank you. Ms. Silla, maybe I should have asked this some steps back.
Yes.
Just to clarify my confusion. The complaint we are talking about, I just want to make sure we're not speaking at cross purposes. There is a complaint by, as I understand it, there's a complaint by MP Adams, which is about dockets being intercepted.
Yes.
But there's also the substantive complaint, the allegations that he's making about the use of the funds of the task team, about the employment, nepotism, and right? So there are those two different things. So were we speaking?
Except if I may make a correction, no, maybe I may not interject.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep in mind, it's me seeking
Yes,
to
yes,
be
I
sure
appreciate
that we're
that.
having the same conversation when
Yes.
we say that complaint. Which complaint are we all agreed or clear which complaint we're talking about.
Indeed.
So this letter from the Chief of Staff, it lists case numbers, right?
Yes.
This is what is referred to. It says in paragraph 2, the allegations contained therein implicate very senior members of the South African Police Service and are viewed in a serious light. And case dockets were registered as per the following case numbers, and it gives case numbers. Now, it is, as I understand it, after those case numbers, in fact, as it reads, after those case numbers, it says, due to the nature of the allegations made by Honorable Fadil Adams, which is deemed to be quite sensitive and which contains allegations of criminal conduct, misconduct, this office requests the ID, the investigating director, to consider investigating the same. Now, my reading of this, it seems, is what is being referred to IDEC is what is contained in those case numbers, not the lifting, not the interception of dockets. I don't know if you understand the distinction
I understand.
I'm drawing.
I fully understand.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that when we say that complaint, what happened to that complaint? Which complaint are we talking about?
Okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps I'll try, based on what the General explained. And perhaps the logical place to start is with the letter of the Chief of Staff, because that letter at page 310.
Perhaps because it's what, maybe a minute or even half a minute.
Okay. It's going to take more than a
to
minute.
lunchtime. It is actually 1 o'clock now. Perhaps let's take the lunch adjournment now, resume at 2 o'clock, and then you may respond to my co-commissioner.
Can I suggest, Ms. Silo, what you may want to do during the...
Please, not yet, please.
May I suggest, Ms. Silo, that perhaps during the break, you may want to look at this and get the witness to clarify his evidence on this issue.
We are ready to clarify. I had understood the witness to clarify, and I intend to deal with it with reference to the documents.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Chair.
Advocate Silo, for my benefit,
Yes.
the evidence we have heard for the last hour, how do we link it to the interference of the GCI ops? Because it seems to me that there's a complaint by an MP.
GCI ops.
Yes, it may or may not have merit, but I heard the General said it showed a pattern leading up to, and that's what I wanted clarity
Well,
on.
we will address it, because I think the General, there's a comment he made before he stated that, which is that perhaps he's rushing ahead of himself.
Yes.
So, but we will park it and address both the issues at 2 o'clock when we
So
reconvene.
that you have time to consider
Yes.
it.
No, wait, we will.
May we now adjourn?